Hey there, Zillig Van, man. Enjoyed your video. About to get started here. Sound preferences. Good morning, Brian. Good morning, Tony. Input. That looks good. Output. That looks good. Audio appears in check. Running late today. Sorry about that. Had a interesting conversation with the software. Actually, Photoshop. The things I could do to Adobe when nobody was looking. But that's another topic. Closing these down. FRMI. And here we are. Hi, thanks for being here. It's Thursday. It's not very exciting. I'm trying to circumvent my mood from, I have a local general store here, and I expected so much more out of them when it came to the whole mask thing. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. It's good to know. And it's I am not suffering. This is not me telling you I'm suffering. This is me telling you that when I have a small town store that is bumping into each other because they're all wearing masks and most of them are devoid of oxygen. And when I'm ordering breakfast, I've been going in there. I don't normally go out for breakfast, but I've been going there because it's my local general store. And it's like territory. It's like turf. I feel like it's important that I stand on this turf once a day and express my presence as a non-mask wearing human. And hey, thanks, Callie. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Keep up the great videos, James. Really enjoy them. Thank you. I'm enjoying these too. I go there to stand my turf, to be like, I am the mountain of sovereignty. I am here to protect the mountain from all mask wearers. In fact, some of you may remember that I had a run-in with a guy in a mask, a short little turkey human. I was kind of waddling, like, you should be wearing a mask. And that I sort of stood my ground. It was very powerful. He ended up flipping me off behind his car window, but only after he rolled the window up and was driving away. It was like, He didn't want to flip me off until he was definitely backed up and then turned around. And then as soon as he was in drive, then he flipped me off. And which is actually part of the topic today, which we're getting ready to get to. But I'm losing ground today. I go in and they don't have water. They've decided to close down the drinking station, which water is important. It's an important part of my breakfast is water. And which I'm fine. I'm okay with that. But anyway, I tell them, hey, you guys really need to have the water up. And I start to get a story about the social distancing and about how important it is. And basically, she's giving me the excuse that I don't have a priority to provide drinking water at a restaurant, okay? Because there are people dying. She didn't use those words, but it was, again, it I didn't even want to bring it up because this is not me complaining. It's saying that the territory is real and that you are going to lose ground in Babylon that you're going to miss. It's not going to be fun. And I ended up going upstairs and as politely as I could talking to one guy that I knew that had kind of sense to him. And before I could even get anything out, he was just telling me, well, yeah, we're pretty much locked down till July. So all the cattle tape in this it's a small general store, but all the cattle tape, all the employees wearing the masks, the focus on water's not a priority, but these giant signs that we're putting up are, and the plexiglass that we're putting up is inside this 7-person restaurant. Anyway, the point is that you're going to lose some territory. And that when I tell you this is the best apocalypse ever, please don't make the same mistake some people make. Just as compassion is not consent, something that great happens is not necessarily comfortable. Okay? It's caloric changes are upon us all, and all of us will be better for them. All of us, including me, which is why I will get to finally get to the topic. I say finally because I do like to keep you guys only in the stream of I don't know, logos gravy, congruence. Okay, so before we get started today, we've already gotten started, obviously, but before we jump to this thing, I want to say what happens when you go to school. If you could call what I'm doing a lecture, like in a traditional philosophical sense, when you go to school, none of us have learned how to participate in a lecture. What I mean by that is that as I'm showing, I might show a chart of something. I'm going to show a chart of something, and those charts are going to have words. And most of you are going to be in the habit of going, well, fuck, I'm going to have to memorize those words. If I memorize those words, then I've properly listened to this lecture. I've downloaded and installed the lecture. And that's like the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. You are going to prune my lips every time. I know most of you guys get this anyway, but you're going to prune my lips even more. For those of you who do get this, it's going to be even more than you think it is. It has to be, because I'm not here to say this is the truth. I am like that dude in Dune who has a worm thumper, and I'm going out on the dune and I'm setting a thumper, an oscillation spear, a javelin right in the ground, and I'm turning that thing on. It's boom, 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 and I'm changing that frequency, boom, 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 and I'm changing it, dialing it down, boom, 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 and I'm taking us all to a place where a giant fucking worm could come up and swallow all of us. It could happen. It doesn't mean it will. It doesn't mean that that worm is the only worm out there. It doesn't mean that that is the only correct way to perceive these things. But I'll tell you something. If you start to write down these words that I use, if you start to gestate, if you start to, what's the opposite of regurgitate? To accept. If you participate in a regurgitation ritual, which so much of schooling has been, you're actually profoundly missing what we're trying to do. Which is, I can transport you to a different vista for an hour. Some of you for 45 minutes when you listen to me on super fast. I'm going to transport you there, and then you get to decide your own shit from this new place. You get to determine what is true and what is not by that. I am a clown to you in the sense that you should never have a threshold of where you're going to accept a baseline from me as legit. You may find my perspective fascinating. You may find it charismatic. But you cannot find it true until you experience it yourself. That's the only model we're talking about. And when I talk about the aperture of flat Earth, I'm instantly inundated with, well, no, it's concave, it's convex, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, or you've missed this change because of this, you've missed this because of that, you've missed this because of that. I don't think you're actually listening to the lecture in the proper way. And I hope you don't mind me using that word lecture, because even that has a connotation to it. All I've stated is that there's something about aperture, that our reality is based on our aperture of consciousness. You're welcome to disagree with that, but to even disagree with that already misses the point completely about aperture. Basically, each of us have the ability to call the worm. Each of us can drop that lance in the sand and fucking turn it on, and some will get a very small worm. Some will get nothing. Some will get, holy cow, that's the biggest worm I've ever seen. None of those are true or accurate. We are fishers of truth. We are going to have catches on certain days, and we're going to miss them on other days. I feel like yesterday was a bad show, and I appreciate the 143 of you that came back. If you happen to see yesterday, 144. With all that said, I'll stop. Let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. What I want to talk about is the electrical fields of the body. And it's great because right now, some of you might be worried that I'm going to talk about like chakras or something, or these magical flower blossoms that float around somewhere out there, and you can't really see them or think about them or perceive them. So you're just kind of like pretending, yeah, I get it. Chakras, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. And you don't really have anything tangible to hold on to as we talk about this. And because of that, you end up in that same I have to take this at face value kind of situation, which requires you to leave your body and physically find a trust seat in the back of the canoe where you just kind of ride. And that's what I want to stop. This is why I've been so adamant about the word belief. I want you to understand that belief is a plasma. And because of that, it gives you a chance to have something tangible that you can physically touch. It's so important. The moment that you find something that you can tangibly picture in the world, you have a fine-tuned grip on that others will not have maybe. And it creates so much more power around it. If you can imagine that scene in The Predator where you don't know what the predator is yet. There's a scene where you're looking in the trees in the movie. He's looking in the trees and he's seeing shapes, but the mind isn't able to process what it finds yet because it doesn't know what the predator looks like. And there's a certain point in that movie where the humanoid shape appears. The predator shows himself in a human form, meaning he's got 2 arms and 2 legs and a head. The instant that you have a belief, you have a tangible idea now to see what your predator looks like. It's the same thing for camouflage. When you understand what the shape is of your enemy, you're going to be able to find him despite any camouflage that they might be wearing. I wonder if I have this really nice and easy here to pull it up. Here it is. Put link in new tab. Here's sort of an example of what I'm trying to say. Anyone who's not watching, it's okay. I'm showing you a forest scene. And that forest scene has, dang it, sorry about that. There it is. Sorry about that, there we go. This forest scene, you can see that, right? Yes. In this forest scene is a person with a gun. And he's fully decked out in camouflage, head to toe, top to bottom. His rifle is camouflage also. And many of you cannot see him. I'm not going to say all of you, and this isn't a contest, but many of you cannot see him. But the moment you know he's a hunter, the moment you know, oh, did you know there's a hunter there? Boom. Your eye is all of a sudden able to discern what is there. And this goes back to what I was talking about the perturbations, about your third eye being the thing that senses everything. And you're perceiving what your mind is allowing to be the most likely case. It's like a quantum perception if you think about it. What is the most likely thing that I can see? Well, if I'm told this is a camouflage and I'm told it's a predator, then I'm looking for something dangerous. And then dangerous might equate you to a gun. And then the gun might equate you to a human. And then boom, next thing you know, you see it all. You see the figure there. you understand exactly what's going on. That's the same way. Where's this thing? That's the same way our electrical fields can be seen. You can see your own electrical fields. You can start to understand this system if you look at it in electrical fields, and that's what I want to talk about today. So, ironically, Ken Wheeler talks about this. A magnet, a neodymium magnet, does not have a center. What I mean is that if you cut a magnet, if you have a magnet to the square and you realize that the top is a pole and the bottom is a pole, there's a center point, a balance point. And if you were to cut the magnet along that balance point, it would be different. Now both these magnets have their own balance point. So it's not a true state that exists inside the magnet. There are not elements or atoms inside the magnet that you could cut out and scrape and say, oh, these are the 0 point ones. And for us to build a magnet, we have to take these 0 point elements and then pile on these other elements on top of it. No, it's a state, right? It's a magnetic state. And that magnetic state has been hidden from you since Rockefeller, since the violet ray device, since Tesla. Since we started electrifying the country, it's been hidden from you. In fact, most of you never see the static electricity of your own body because when you're awake, you're running some sort of artificial light or it's daylight outside. So you're not actually seeing all the electricity that happens in your body. Running your fingers on the shower curtain, touching your wife. All those create tiny electricity. When you get in your bed, you can run your foot down and you'll see all this plasma emitting. And that's been hidden from you. It's been hidden, but you can start to see it now. And part of the hiding of it is making you think it's new age chakra stuff. Your propensity to believe that is an electrical field. An electrical field of aversion that you've been taught and you have inside of you. You were the one guilty of this. This is not society. Please keep in mind, society is not guilty of doing anything to you. It's not. You are guilty you were guilty of what that's going to do to yourself. And I realize that's not the funnest thing to hear, but it's true. I'm talking to myself now too. You're not here to suffer, but you are here to understand that the more responsibility you're pushing on someone else, the more you're avoiding yourself. I am off on a tangent right now, bringing it back. This electrical field, this aversion that you have about chakras, is an electrical field of opposition to it. The aversion that someone has to you not wearing a mask in a store is an electrical field that's repelling them, that's pushing them from it. And that electrical field, they are responsible for. What they've done is they've seen the electrical field off of you, someone who is not wearing a mask, and they've said, I cannot accept that in my life. That is causing too much caloric burn for me to see someone else not wearing a mask. I need to oppose that field. And their body state, the organs in their body, the salt and the oil, create the electrical field necessary to oppose me. They now have a electromagnetic opposition to me. I know we think this is all about our thoughts, but it's not. This is all about your body. This is all about your adrenals. This is how you have a disagreement with someone. This is how you have a passionate exchange that makes a baby with someone. This is all electrical. And I'm going to go through this whole thing. I'm going to try to not even say the word chakra. And I think you'll find I don't have to. I realize I just said the word. But I want you to understand that I'm talking about clothing. I'm talking about attitude. I'm talking about posture. I'm talking about poise, charisma, confidence. I'm talking about voice. These are all electrical fields, but you don't see it yet. You've been Medusa'd All of us have been Medusa'd into thinking that it's not that way. And that's why we're here. That's what we're going to fix. So, before we get to that, just like the magnet, I would like for you to participate in a very strange exercise. And you don't have to do this now if you don't want, but I hope you'll do it later. I hope you'll really do it later. The reason why I'm suggesting you might want to do it later is because I'd rather your pace run this exercise. This is an electrical exercise. It may not feel like it, but this is an electrical exercise, and it goes like this. If you cut off your fingernails, the end of your fingernails, which is you? Your fingernails or you? If you cut off your hair, which is you? Your hair or your body? You. Now keep going. Cut off your toe. And where are you now? Are you the toe? Or are you in your body? And more importantly, where? Where in your body are you? Now that you have no toe, what happens to your needle? What happens to your center? Now take your ear off. Where are you? Where's your center? Where is your center? Does it move? Does it get closer to the wound? Does it get further away? Now take your hand off. Oh. Now your elbow. Now your knee. Where are you? Where is your center now? Are you still a person? Are you still a whole person? How much of the person is you? I'd like you to take a kidney out now. The kidney's out. Look at it. Is that you? Or is that not you? Where are you now? It's just like a magnet. The size of the magnet is going to determine the center. It's going to determine the essence of what it is. It's a field. All right? The magnet is a field. I know that you see it as a shape. I know that you see it as a cube or a disc or something, but it's a field. You just can't see the field. You're holding a neodymium cube, but you can't see that it's actually a fluffy field. You can't see it and you can't hold it. You can't tangibly understand it. But it's there. In fact, it's more real than the magnet itself. If you think about it, it's more of an element than the actual cube because it's more accurate. It's giving you a better reading over what the world really is by considering it as a field, a toroidal field. Your body's the same way. And because it's a field, it's for the very first time, many of us are learning that we have autonomy over that field, that we can change that field. Now, the good news is you've been doing this anyway. So this is not like I'm teaching you a secret trick. But when you can tangibly place your fingers on this, when you can really understand what your field is, you will start to gain a lot more sovereignty over your mood and over what others do or say to you, and generally your environment. It is a field like a torus. It's a donut, a torus. It's any magnet. Look up Ken Wheeler. He's got some great stuff on that. He's not the only one. These are all fields. Now let's talk about the electrical field of the body. For those who can't see, I have a simple line drawing of the human body up, and surrounding that body are fields. Right now, those fields are not labeled. They're just lines just surrounding the body. And this is when I want to remind everybody that the terms you're about to see should not be memorized. These terms are part of that thumper lance that I'm throwing down. You should have your own terms, and more importantly, you should really see the flaws in my model as it pertains to you. That would really be the most accurate way you could walk away from this lecture, is saying, well, James has got this field all wrong. It's really this field, or I really think it's this way or that. That would actually be a better score if we were talking about how immersed we are. That would be a better way to do this. So these fields pertain to, actually, before we even get here, let me quickly say that your organs are their own fields. Your heart has its own memories. Look at heart transplant patients. Their memories, their cues, their desires are completely affected by this change, by being put into a new body or whatever. All internally. You have your own system of fields, and that's what that exercise is about, is cutting off pieces of your body and asking yourself where you are. It's really understanding that you're a field. You're a field state. The first auric field around your body is the elemental field. And I can prove that it exists because you have hairs on your body. And those hairs will stand up during certain times. Additionally, you will have your skin, which is pretty thick. Your skin is actually pretty thick. It will acquire goosebumps based on the flow of blood underneath them. The blood will align in a polarity, and goosebumps will literally pop out of your skin. Your hair will stand on its end when you sense something in the room. This is your most basic field that you have around you. And you can practice this field with anyone else. If you were to hold your hands up and if you and someone else were to hold your hands, close your eyes and hold your hands close together, you would feel a signature from that person. You will tell yourself, well, that's just heat. And there's no reason to have the word just. It is heat. That's an elemental field that you have in your body. You can detect heat that isn't touching you. That's showing you that there is an electrical field that you have around you. And that field is there to listen to heat. It's a heat gun, right? So your basic auric field is an elemental heat gun. That's level 1. Well, I've already said that. Your hairs prove that. The fact you can even sense that proves that. That's an electrical state that you have. When you go into shock, that changes because your core becomes more important. That electrical field changes, and you're now clammy and cold, right? You've lost that auric field. It's now in your core now, right? See, there's nothing imaginary about this. It's an electrical state you have, and your body can change that electrical state. If you jump into a super cold pond in winter, boom, you are entering into hypervolcanic shock, right? Or you're entering a shock, a core shock. All of your electrical field is now shrunk and gotten tighter. That's the elemental field. The next field is the sexual field. I call it sexual field. You could call it etheric field. You could call it that, but here's why I'm calling it sexual field. Because you're always going to detect heat. Like if your hand is near a stove, you will always feel heat. There's no other governor on that. Sexual is different. Sexual is an auric field that is an attraction. You can sense it like heat, but you're only sensing waves that are congruent with you. It's fascinating, right? Because you are only sensing heat from those that you are sexually attracted to. Now, please keep in mind that I'm using sex in a non-Western sense. Mulatara. It's you know what? We're going to get lost if most of you have sexualized sex, and so which sounds crazy, but it's a subtle form of elemental aura, and it's your second field. That's why when you have intimate sex with someone, you get close to them. You want your electrical field to interact with their electrical field, and that's That's why you take your clothes off. That's why you shed these outer layers so that you can converge on an inner layer. All right? Next is our emotional electrical field. You have an emotional electrical field. It's your limbic response, filtered up through your neocortex, but still, it's your reptilian limbic response to things. It's your emotional electrical field. If you are feeling sad, if you are feeling emotional kind of personality that I broadcast. And it's even more subtle than the sexual. When I say it's even more fidelis than the sexual field, because it's not just based on raw attraction. In other words, the sexual field would be attracted to the bosoms or hips of a woman that I did not know, right? A stranger. It's a less personable, not even really personable, but it's less tuned in. This emotional state is more tuned in. It's tuned in not to someone's physical body, their sexual body, but to their emotional aura, how they are feeling, right? If you want to believe in doom and gloom, you're going to watch the truth channels that are pushing doom and gloom. If you want to believe in sovereignty, you're going to watch the truth channels that push sovereignty. It's same with flat earth, same with religion, same with Republicans, Democrats. These are our emotional bodies. And we don't actually show them because they're covered over with so many. But it's there, and it's on top of the sexual body. Next is our egoic body. For the first time, I'm going to use the word chakra. It's also your heart chakra. Your ego is the combination of your lungs and your heart. Thank you, Benjamin, for helping me understand that. It's both. It's actually your largest chakra. It's the Great Pyramid. It's the big one. And that's your ego, your electrical state, how much gasoline you have. Some of you may still think ego is a bad word, but this class is kind of, man, we are kicking ass. Most of us already know how I feel about ego. You can go back, though, and look. There's a few videos I have that strategically reset the definition of the word ego, but I don't want us to lose too much time in it right now. Ego is your center. And the more powerful you are, the more powerful the energy and fuel you have inside your ego, the more generous and empathic you're going to be other people. That's what being heart-centered means. It's, hey man, find your power, then you can give it to people. It's that kind of thing. It's like gasoline. The more gas you have, the more willing you're going to be to wait for others to cross the street or give someone a can when they're low. Next is your casual electrical field. Your casual electrical field is going to be your basic sort of state at all times. Are you wiggly? Are you jittery? Or are you calm? Someone who's grounding has a very strong. This is your outer casual shell. It's really the first opaque layer electrically. Meaning that when you see someone's casual state, most of us cannot see through someone's casual state. They play that card in a covered way, and it's good. It's how you protect yourself. You will have a rapport, right? If you're working in a restaurant and someone comes in like me and complains that there's no water to drink, but if we would stop putting up so many signs, we could put a sign on the water saying, hey, there's no water. Their casual electrical state is able to deal with someone like that. And so we are constantly reinforcing each other's casual state in that way. In fact, this is why airplanes are so uncomfortable, because your casual egoic field is actually violated and you have no choice about it. You're forced, your casual state cannot sustain itself inside of a chair. And because of that, your ego becomes vulnerable for the next person. And that's why everyone on an airplane, their ego shrinks. That's why it's the perfect stage to set any kind of psyop. You've already got someone in that. It's like, okay, hunch down. Okay, now will you accept this? That kind of thing. It's your the workforce. When you go into a workforce and you see someone in a cubicle with a tie, the tie is showing you their casual electrical state. It's showing you their willingness to wear uniform. It's showing you their desire to to hide themselves from you. And I'm not bashing on ties, but keep in mind, when you're wearing a tie, you're sort of also saying, yeah, this is what I wear all the time. I totally hang out at home with a tie on. I go to bed. I was like, oh, let me fix my tie. I go to bed. It's again, there's nothing wrong with it. All of us have uniforms that help in different ways, but most of us, I think almost all of us have to get, okay, all of us are going to get lost in some way when you enter into this uniform state. You're adopting a different casual shell. And once you have that casual shell outside of yourself, the architecture of that shell is actually going to be what's determining the rest of your stuff inside. That's why the only uniform that I would possibly consider wearing again would be like a mascot costume, because you have a lot of room in there. And plus you have anonymity. So you can still have your own casual body inside of this outer casual body. If you think about it, that's really the best analogy for describing this aura, this casual aura. It's aura. We are wearing the mascot costume for our own team. Our own team has its mascot, and it's named James. And it looks like this. So let's bring it out. It's that kind of thing. All these are electrical states. And notice, I haven't had to call them chakras. I haven't had to do that. Because I want you guys to have something tangible. When you have something tangible, you're going to start to see these things around you. You're going to see someone's aura. When someone else says, oh, did you see her aura this morning? You're actually going to be able to say yes. Because you're going to understand, oh, this is her casual state. She's got a run in her hose. So she's trying to wear a casual state, and there's a breach in it. And wouldn't that hold true? In other words, if someone who wore hose to be a receptionist, for example, and they were to have a run in their hose, but the table, this is a very specific analogy, but the reception table is see-through, and you can see that you see a flaw in their electrical field, you see a crack in it, and you can prove it because if you were to point it out, they would collapse in a lump of mashed potatoes. I'm not saying that they would be like, oh, but the point is that pointing that out would cost them calories. That they would then see the leak, and it would all be held true. In other words, the electrical state that you saw by looking at the hose is actually the electrical state. And to call it the electrical state goes further, because now you understand the psyche of that person inside. When before, you might have just looked at it as, oh, well, there's a run in their hose. I'm sure that this is a fashion statement, or I'm sure that they already know it's there, or I'm sure they just don't give a shit. That's when you stop and you kind of keep it on your own. Your emotional state actually is stopping you from using any kind of aperture to adjust to that. It's your casual state. And now on top of your casual state is your task state, okay? This would be, some would call this your spiritual, which is fine. I call it task state because a spiritual quest is a task. So for example, someone in a tie at a cubicle is in his casual state. He's got a 10:30 appointment to deliver the TPS reports. He doesn't want to fail. He goes to the copy room and he starts to make his copies for his presentation. The copy maker has a paper jam in tray 7. And he didn't know there was a fucking tray 7. Sorry, I just said, yeah. He didn't know there was a tray 7. He's now, his task state, he's still in a tie. He's still in casual mode, but now his task state has changed. There's an outer state that's outside of him that's like, oh, I got to hurry. If I don't get this done, I got to figure out where tray 7 is. And you see that electrical field comes out as he pokes his head out the window going, does anybody know where tray 7 is? Anybody? Tray 7. Got a tray 7 error. Anybody know where tray 7 is? And Glenda comes by with the run in her hose and goes, I don't know, but the manual's up above the cabinet. And he goes, okay, great. So now he's in there and he's looking at that. And when Glenda is in there helping him, he doesn't even see the run in her hose because he's in his task state. His electrical energy field is obvious. Yes, he's wearing a tie, but he's no longer in, hey, did you catch the Braves game last night? Did you see this? Did you see that? What do you think about these masks? Or, hey, Glenda, you want to go out later? Or, is that a run in your hose? Or are you just bursting at the seam? Whatever it is gone, because this man is in his task state now. I just totally said sexual harassment is happening here. That's fine too. The more lively these things are, the more they'll stick. That task state is now in charge. It's what you see. All right? It's what you see outside of him. Now, underneath that, there could be a sexual state. He's attracted to Glenda. Underneath that is his emotional state. He's now nervous. He really wants this report to go well. On top of that is his egoic state, because he knows he's going to nail it, because he found some clues in the last quarter's findings that are going to show an 8.6% change in gross national product in the coming quarter. So he's got that egoic state, and then he's got his casual state trying to maintain itself on top of it while he's completing his task state. These are all electrical fields, my friends. And all of them are manipulatable by society and by you. And when you understand that these are each separate electrical fields, you now have the anatomy, you now have the ability to perceive and understand what someone else is going through. You now have a freaking vital aperture into their state. You can slip into their adrenals and wear them like a jumpsuit and see what it feels like to have a run in your hose, to have a tie around your neck, to be fixing paper 7 but still being confident even though you're nervous about how much time's left over, but secretly you really want to stuff it at Glenda. You are really into her. All of those are different electrical fields. All of those are different electrical states. There's an outer state, which most of us have forgotten. It's a sheen. It's a coating. This is your crown chakra. Sorry to say it, but it's your crown chakra. And what is your crown but what rules you? You would call this your God chakra if you want. I'm not taking away from this. I've called it something different. I'd like to zip you back to minute 2 when I said, what the words I'm using are not supposed to be your words. This ancestor chakra, your crown chakra, I'm calling it ancestor chakra because we've been taught to ignore our family line, our genetic roots. You are an avatar. You are a face on the totem pole of your DNA chain. That's why you live forever. You were not made. Your thread has been stretched out through the fractal of time. Time is unwrapped, and your fractal has always been here. But we've been told to cut away our ancestor. This is why the word pride is so bad right now, because it links you to your higher ancestral desires. It's your ancestral task. It's your God task. You're going to live in a way that is prime for you. And that's really what we're going through right now. Some of you are worried because of Babylon closing in behind you. Some of you are passing notes that on May 4th it will be mandatory to wear a mask inside Costco. Some of you are having bad incidences like myself at Fred's when you're and the key to feeling better about that is understanding your ancestral chakra. You're not afraid of dying. You're afraid of not being who you are. You're afraid of not being able to maintain who you are. That's what you're afraid of. That's the apprehension. That's the fear that you have when you watch Babylon closing in behind you. And the fact that you're afraid of that is power. It's the power that's already inside you. This is why I'm always kind of a stickler about the word fear. Because the fact that you're afraid of this is really good sign. It's a really good sign. Because it's showing you that you're concerned about your crown chakra. It's showing you that you're concerned about your ancestor, your God, your eternal root. And the fact that you're concerned about it is the circuitry. That is the electrical field. That's what's great about it. The outer field, the ancestral field, is part of that fear that you have right now. And that means it's working. That means you still have that field around you. You can still change and adjust that field. And I want you to find where all the power is. All of the power is in you thriving. It's not in you making a moral decision. It's not in you making a socially acceptable decision. When I say it's not you making a moral decision, please hear where I'm going with this. Thriving, ancestrally thriving, is the ultimate moral decision. That's going to be your true source of power in all this. That's going to make you rethink chickens in your garage. That's going to make you rethink Babylon. It's going to come from this fear that you have. But only if you thrive on it. Only if you alchemize it. Fear is current through your body. What we call fear, I should say. What we call fear is current running through your body. It's that, oh man, something's getting ready to happen. It's anticipation times a million. And it happens in a split second. That anticipation, that current, changes to rejected power, which is what most of us call fear. That's what all of you say is fear, is really rejected power. It's power that was turned away, going, I can't take that. You can claim it back, but it's harder. It's a lot like innocent blood. It's so creepy to say this, but it's a lot like innocent blood. You taint, man, I hope you guys get this. You taint your electrical field just like you charge it. You give it parthenia. If you squirt it in the car on the way to work, you're not going to be able to look at Glenda the same way as if you went for a run that morning before work. Your electrical field is going to be completely different. And by design, all the other electrical fields are going to be built on top of that, which means they're going to suffer too. Each of these fields have to be tended to like a garden. That's who the self is. The way you groom yourself is going to affect which field, right? It's going to be your casual field, which is right next to your egoic field, isn't it? Which is also going to be right next to your task field. And all that's going to be reinvigorating your emotional field. Where you live, what you eat, what you say, who you hang out with, which rules you follow. All those will be affecting your field in these different ways. This is a real living chakra. It's the real thing. And these electrical fields are not only tangible, they're actually more important than physical organs. What? Yeah. Boy 7, who should have been blinded when he lost the visual part of his brain as a baby, stuns doctors by being able to see well enough to recognize faces and play soccer. This is a story from Daily Mail. I'm going to place it in the chat for you fine people. Hey, Benjamin, got the fire going. How does a 7-year-old boy see the world without a visual cortex? For those of you who can't see, there's an MRI on the screen showing a normal brain, quote, quote, on the left, and you can clearly see pathways to and from the visual cortex, basically responding to his brain. And on the right is an Australian boy that is missing the visual cortex. He didn't have it since he was 2 weeks old. He's not even using his retinas, people. He's not. So how does he do it? Well, let's first talk about what he can and can't do. All right? He can name objects, colors. He can identify people's facial reactions. He can tell if they're happy, fearful, or neutral. Right? As the researcher said, you wouldn't think he is blind. He navigates his way around without any problems and plays soccer and video games. The only flaw that they could find in his vision is he was nearsighted, and check this out. He was unable to read the top letter on an eye chart when standing more than 4 feet away. He was unable to see the mundanity of an eye chart, but he knew the emotional facial expressions on humans. If that does not prove that he sees, that he processes the electrical field around him, I don't know what is. It's literally proving these layers of electricity around us. These layers which you should name, not me. You should decide there's more. One of you should be pointing out, James, 0 is root, man. That's ground. And like, you're damn straight. I actually had ground on there, but I took it out because I didn't want to confuse you. And James, 8. That, you know, that's your top. Those are the 9 points that Benjamin Baltus was talking about. And I agree. I just want you to know that I put this together to show you how your individual body works, how your own electrical system works. You are an egg, an energetic egg. And if you weren't so blinded by society, you could have been learning how to see a different way the whole time. You could have been wandering around learning how to see the world electrically. But you can't, because you're blinded by the light. Remember when we talked about this? Hey, I got a super chat from Cog. Hey, Cog, thank you. Thank you much. With a heart and right back to you. Right back to you. C of G, I think I should say. Thank you for that. Do you remember Blinded by the Light? You guys remember me going, oh, it's all about Blinded by the Light. You guys have to listen to this song, Blinded by the Light, man. It tells you everything you need to know. Well, you should. I'd play it for you, but I think they'll cut the stream off if I do that. It's Manfred Mann's Blinded by the Light. So much light is coming in through our retinas that we are out of tune with listening to other connections. The exact same thing that I said about electricity, right? Remember? Because we are always in a world that's illuminated when we're awake, we are not able to see our own subtle electrical fields around us. Ladies and gentlemen, Babylon is making you blind. And a blackout would be the brightest thing that ever happened to us. We got to get our food in order, though. We got to learn how to feed each other or ourselves. I got to find a way to have chickens in the house. I've had owls. Chickens seem harder than owls. It's weird. There's so much of this world waiting for us on the other side. This Babylon thing is not what it's cracked up to be. So I want you to think about that. If needles are coming, okay? If jackboots are coming and needles are coming, and they're going to kick down your door, and they're going to come in and they're going to put you on the floor on your belly, and they're going to stick you with a needle. If that's really what's fearing you, I want you to take comfort in knowing that you could die. I want you to understand that actually thriving is about being who you are, being someone that would not happen to, being someone that would say, no, I don't consent, that's not happening. And if it ends up that you end up dying for that, it's because that's who you were. It's because that's who you are. It's the people that will change who they are, depending on the situation outside themselves. Those are the ones that aren't living. Those are the people that will never have an electrical field strong enough to even get past ego, right? Remember all the times I tell you how people eject their ego? That's what you're doing is you're dispelling that fourth field. You're declaring that fourth electrical field invalid, and you're killing it every chance you get. And what ends up happening? Well, now your emotional field has to end up compensating for your egoic field. So you end up with these repressed sexual desires coming to the top through your emotions, which sounds like virtue signaling to me. It sounds exactly like what's happening all around us when we hate our ego. You can see the electrical fields in your body. You already do. And I'd like for you to recognize them. And I'd like you to understand that dying with your principles is fine. We're going to die anyway. We're supposed to die. There's nothing sad about it. It's those of us who changed. That's the sad part. It's those of us who fell for it and decided to adjust as a result. To go, well, maybe I will take a shot. Look, I just want a shot, whatever. Or no, I really want to go to Costco, so I'm going to keep wearing a mask. It's hard to go there and cancel and say, I'm not, this is why I'm canceling. That's what I did to Fred's today. I went upstairs, I told the one sane guy, I can't give you my business anymore. And I want you to know that it sucks. I love it here. I love coming here. I love seeing you guys' faces in the morning, but I can't support this. And my electrical field was like, oh, because I didn't like complaining. I didn't like being the guy that was complaining. And because of my electrical field was so shaky, it came out in my voice, it came out in my tremors. I wasn't as I could have been cooler about it, I think. I could have been better about it. If I had water, I would have been fine. I was really thirsty too. I usually go downstairs. Anyway, I'm going to thrive as me. And for me to thrive as me, I had to say goodbye to Fred's Mercantile until July. And again, this is not a hard thing. It's such a stupidly not hard thing to do. It's tweaking. All these are opportunities for us to rebuild our electromagnetic clothing, to find our center, to understand what it truly is. All right, guys. Make sure there's no questions in here. Holy shit, mind blown again. Thank you, Chad. All right. Yep, confrontation is hard because it's supposed to be. You know that. That's the sacrifice you make for the magic to work. Thank you, Nevertheless Bear. $3.07. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Go out and conquer the world. Do it proud. Find some electrical fields. Write your own down. Seriously, write your own down. It'd be interesting to see. We'll see you guys next time.